Everybody, I'm Lynn Polton, the Director of Marketing for ICD. I'm here with Dave Ekerdt. He's a Professor of Sociology at the University of Kansas. And I'm so excited that you are going to be speaking at our conference in September in Orlando. Your session title is Confronting the Material Convoy in Later Life. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what can you tell us about your session?
Well, I think if there's one thing that I'd want to convey, it is to put in people's mind this idea of a material convoy. A house has thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of things in it. And we tend to often talk about, especially when it comes to older adults, we like to talk about their treasures or their special possessions. And in so doing, we end up overlooking all the rest of it. And my co-authors and I have devised a metaphor of the material convoy, and it's based on another metaphor called the social convoy. So just bear with me for a second.
Yeah.
There is a social convoy, for example, of people that accompany you from the cradle to the grave. When you're born, there are people around you for the rest of your life. There are people around you. You either gather them or they're assigned to you, but there's always a group of people around you. And by the same token, there is a convoy of material around you for your entire life. When you come home from the hospital, you come home to a nursery that already has possessions in it, and possessions never leave you all of your life. And this is if we talk about the material convoy that accompanies people over time, this is a way that we can talk about the comprehensiveness of possessions, but also talk about the way that they've been carried across time and across places. The material convoy varies in size. Things can join it, things can drop out of it. There are things in the convoy that we value very much, things in the convoy that we've forgotten about, things in the convoy that we actually hate, things in the convoy that, for example, belong to my wife.
It's all the other people.
It's all this stuff. And there's also a feature of it, which is also a feature of the social convoy, which we regard many things with ambivalence. Just as your brother-in-law, you love the guy, but you could kill him at the same time. It's also true of many of the possessions that we have. So we have this relationship with things that really support our lives and help us enact our lives. A baby is inconceivable without toys, and an adult is inconceivable without keys. These things are always with us, this convoy that we've created or has been given to us. And my interest in this begins when people can no longer accommodate and manage the convoys that they have. In this particular instance where they need to perhaps live more independently and move to a place where they could better take care of themselves. They cannot do this unless they deal with their material convoy, cutting it perhaps in half, cutting it perhaps by 2/3 in order to move to a new place, a better place where they can take care of themselves.
What would you want somebody to take away from your session?
Well, first of all, I would like them to think about people's possessions not as things in the way, not as things as occupying space, but as things with which people have had a long relationship. And how do you get them to break that relationship with those things? My research is based on people doing this themselves. I have no problem with professionals helping them, and I even encourage professionals to help them. But we've studied people in about 130 households in the area where I live here in Kansas City, and also in the Detroit area, people who've moved within the last year, and we've interviewed them intensely about how did you do this? How did you carry this out yourself? We've also had national survey data that asks people, if you think about the things that you have where you live, would you say you have too few things, too many things, or just the right amount? And among adults 60 and older, they say, what would you guess the percentage is, Lynn? Let's say I have too many things.
I would say it's about 80%.
60%.
Oh, okay.
But even that I was surprised. But that translates into, if you generalize that, that translates into about 35 million people over the ages over the age of 60 in America saying, I have more things than I need.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an example of they're built out this material convoy, and now their roles have changed, and they no longer need all of this material, and they've made the judgment that they have too much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another question that we've asked in the national survey is, do your possessions make you reluctant to think about moving? And there the number is 75%, are either very reluctant or somewhat reluctant to think about moving. And then we're in the neighborhood of 35 or 40 million people have a predicament with their possessions. So how do they do this? How do they go about um, cutting the volume of their possessions down so they can move? And one thing that I'll be talking about is decisional heuristics. That is, shortcuts, rules of thumb that people use in order to decide quickly. I mean, there's a lot of material that they have to decide about, and they have to do it quickly. And these are people who may not have all the stamina in the world to do this. And these various heuristics, I've named them. There's a fit heuristic. When you know where you're going, you don't need that second bedroom. You don't need all that that dining room furniture. There's a utility heuristic. Is this really garden tools going to be useful in the assisted living? Absolutely not. There's a me, not me heuristic, where that's not me anymore. I don't do that. I don't need that kind of clothing. We have an interesting passage in our research where women have had extensive dining and hospitality materials where
Mm-hmm.
they cut themselves down and they take to the next place service for 4 or service for 6. That tends to be what it is. They arrive at that, leaving behind those materials that they're probably not going to use again. When it comes to giving things away, there's a gender and kin heuristic. Things have a gender. There are male things and female things, and when you're going to give them away, you give the male things to, you give the guns to your sons or sons-in-law, and you give the furs, if you can give the furs. You give the furs to the female relatives. People tend to make those decisions quickly. Another heuristic is what I call offering and claiming, not where you give things away, but you offer things. You open the house and say, you kids come in and you get whatever you want. Then I don't have to care about your gifts, my gifts being refused. I don't have to care about any fights. You settle it among yourselves. And the one final heuristic is the deadline heuristic. When people have decided to move, the clock ticks down, and people work and work and work and aware that it's 3 weeks to go, 2 weeks to go, 1 week to go. Where is that truck from the donation agency coming to pick things up? And I think people's decisions get even more economical under the threat of a deadline. So by these methods, people accomplish this task. It's very laborious. It's usually very, very stressful, but people do it. And we understand from them, that the people that we've talked to, we understand from them that they're pleased with themselves for having done it, because they saw this coming for years.
Mm-hmm.
They
Well,
know, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that the heuristics that you're talking about will be a great framework for us to keep in mind, reminders, because much of our work is helping people through that decision process. And
Yeah.
many people have different questions that they'll ask their clients to help guide them based on their values and what's going to help them in the next stage of their life and what will fit. So I'm really excited.
It will be called Downsizing the Material Convoy in Later Life.
Fantastic.
Based on this research.
Well, thank you for spending time with us today, and look forward to seeing you in September.
All right.
Yeah, and you have a great day.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Take
Thanks a
care.
lot, Dave. You too.
Bye.